This is VOA Africa. Hello, I'm Vincent Makori, Africa 54 Managing Editor in for ST Awards. It's Monday, December the 7th. This is Africa 54. Now, due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees, so our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what is going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. We begin in Ethiopia, where humanitarian workers say the northern Tigray region is too volatile for aid to reach hundreds of thousands of civilians in dire need. There are reports of persistent fighting, looting, and lawlessness. Aid agencies warn of a lack of food, medication, and body bags in Tigray, where 600,000 people were already receiving food aid before a month of fighting began between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government troops and a rebellious regional force. Abiy declared victory over the Tigray People's Liberation Front after federal troops captured the regional capital Mekelle 8 days ago, saying not a single civilian had been killed in the offensive. However, a doctor who reached the city on Sunday told Reuters that at least 27 people, including a 4-year-old, a 78-year-old man, and a family of 4, had died in the offensive. The doctor also says that 2 others were killed and 4 were seriously wounded when residents blocked roads to protest looting by government forces in Mekelle. Government officials did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Reuters and VOA have not been able to verify claims from all sides on the state of fighting. Ghana's presidential election is underway on Monday as incumbent Nana Akufo-Addo and his main rival, former President John Mahama, are each offering plans to help the economy rebound from its first quarterly reduction in nearly 40 years. Eyes are on the West African economic powerhouse to see if it can maintain its standing as a bastion of democracy in the unstable region where election disputes this year have fanned fears of a slide back into authoritarianism. There are 12 presidential candidates, but most voters are likely to choose between Akufo-Addo and his new Patriotic Party and Mahama's National Democratic Congress, which have alternated in power since 1992. The race is expected to be tight, but political observers say Akufo-Addo has a slight lead based on his performance during the pandemic, in which his administration provided free water and subsidized electricity to households. A new parliament is also being elected. The chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana says our organization is fully prepared to administer free, transparent, and credible elections on Monday. Attorney General Adukwei Mensa's remarks follow a meeting with both local and international poll observers at the headquarters of the Electoral Commission in the capital, Accra, on Friday. VOA's Peter Clotis sat down with Jean Mensa, chairperson of the Commission. In part 1 of the interview, Mrs. Mensa says the Commission is fully prepared for the vote.
I must say that we are fully prepared. And I say so because we've put in place an effective planning and distribution mechanism. And so some 1 month into the election, we had disseminated all the necessary materials into the field and conducted training for over 240,000 field officials who would be manning and conducting this election. Additionally, for the first time in our history, ballot papers were printed and distributed to the various police armories some 2.5 weeks before the election. And so, from where I sit as chairperson of the commission, I say that we are fully prepared. Our officials have been adequately trained, and we have a sufficient supply of materials in the field in readiness for the election come the 7th of December 2020.
So talk to me about the new measures your administration has implemented to ensure the polls are credible and transparent.
What we've done is to strengthen and deepen our processes. And so from the word go, we recognize that elections are a process. It's not just an activity on 1 or 2 days. And therefore, right from the word go, we took steps to demystify our processes and remove the cloaks of secrecy that had shrouded our work. And we did this by setting up a platform that we called the Let the Citizen Know platform and providing them with regular, relevant, and timely updates on our work.
You recently compiled a voter list or register to be used for these elections. There were a whole lot of noise made, but you were able to do it. Tell us what you put in place to ensure that you met that commitment to have a credible register to be used for the elections.
Yes, interestingly, you know, the Commission deployed a completely new biometric verification management solution ahead of this election. And by that I mean right from the building of a new data center and a disaster recovery center to procuring biometric registration kits and biometric verification devices and the software were all done this year. Of course, these processes started last year, but because of the COVID-19 virus, we had some challenges in implementing very early on. And therefore, we initiated the process of compiling a brand new register ahead of the 2020 election in July. But I think it was just a lot of the determination of our teams, the training afforded to them, and the message coming from the Commission. One of a message of professionalism and efficiency is what trickled down to all our staff members, and they worked to satisfaction.
Can you assure Ghanaians that the elections will meet their high expectations of transparency?
Definitely. And I think we've been transparent and very bare with our processes all along. And the good news is that our electoral process on election day is very transparent. It's an open and transparent process, and it can be observed by all. Today we have some 28 international and local observer groups who are observing, you know, the elections. We've also provided accreditation to over 10,000 media personnel, and free of charge. For the first time in our history, we are providing the media with accreditation cards to be able to observe and monitor the elections at no cost. And, you know, our processes are open. They are, as I mentioned, they are done in open spaces, and so citizens can observe it. The counting is also done in the open, and you hear, you know, those who are counting, they separate and sort out, you know, the ballots for the various candidates, and you hear, if they mention the candidate, you can hear 1, 2, and so it's very open.
Madam Chairperson, before coming to speak with you, I spoke with some officials who work here, not the top officials, and this is what I came up with. I'm going to read it to you. They said, describing you as a transformational leader who has brought so many reforms into the electoral process, right from having a clean, credible register, this is what they say, their words, not mine. Despite the stiff opposition you met, my question to you, Madam Chairperson, is what drives you to take such bold steps or initiatives?
Well, I'm driven to see things done properly. And I believe that the register, the voters' register, is the bedrock and the foundation for free, fair, credible elections. And if you have the foundation document, the source document wrong, then you cannot have credible and clean elections. And therefore, my drive is based on my desire to see strong, credible institutions, you know, and institutions that are founded on sound governance principles. And in our case, an institution that is founded on sound governance principles, but sound electoral processes. And so this is what drives me.
Well, that was Peter Clotis speaking with Jean Adukwei, Mensa, chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. In part 2, we will discuss the electoral body's plans to declare the outcome of Monday's vote within hours after the polls close. Recent deaths from COVID-19 in Kenya of a refugee, a member of parliament, and a retired civil servant all happened because emergency help was hours away. Nearly 3/4 of Kenya's intensive care unit beds are in the 2 largest cities, that's Nairobi and Mombasa. Yet, the new coronavirus is spreading into rural areas where the public health system is creaking and scarce ICU units are full and turning patients away. Medics around the nation told Reuters. Christmas travel may worsen the problem, and not just in Kenya. Africa is recording 10,000 to 12,000 cases daily, moving towards a July peak of 14,000 after most governments eased lockdowns that curbed the disease but decimated jobs. Nearly a year into the global coronavirus pandemic, doctors are monitoring patients they call COVID long haulers, people who still suffer from symptoms months after they've recovered from the immediate effect of the virus. Anna Nelson has the story, narrated by Anna Rice.
Michael Reagan got infected with COVID-19 in the early spring of 2020. By May, he thought the worst was over. But in June, he was still coughing blood, had difficulty breathing, his hands were trembling, he would faint from time to time, and his heart was racing. What is more, he never regained his sense of taste and smell.
I smell phantom smells, like I smell something burning at all times. I smell smoke. And often, in the night, I'll wake up and in my pajamas, I'll run into the apartment and I'll look to see if something is burning, and it's not, it's me.
Reagan is what doctors are calling a COVID long hauler, a person who has never recovered from some of the worst effects of COVID-19. And he's not alone. There are thousands of others suffering from the same syndrome. Reagan and a group of other long haulers started an online group and even held a Zoom meeting with a representative of the WHO.
One of the specific factors are that people have relapses, so you seem to get better and then you get worse. Your symptoms come back, you have new symptoms appearing at random times.
Today, scientists agree that COVID-19 is a systemic disease. It affects various human organs, including the brain and nervous system. Recent research published by neurologist Igor Kuralnik found that about a third of patients who survived COVID developed alterations of brain function. Symptoms included feelings of disorientation to coma. And that is true for patients with light forms of COVID or even those who didn't have any symptoms.
It takes some time for people to go over the first minor respiratory presentation, then have a free interval without any symptoms, and then present those lingering neurologic manifestations.
The problem of long haulers is growing, and special clinics are starting to open across the U.S. to specifically help such people. At a Seattle clinic, Amy Compton-Phillips, the doctor who treated the first COVID patient in the U.S., is trying to learn more about long haulers.
We do have a large study going on now with citizen scientists trying to understand, what are people's symptoms and what are they experiencing, starting from the time of their diagnosis through to really see if we can figure out, is it 35% that's long haul? Is it 10%? Is it 75? I don't know. But we're trying very hard to learn.
And Michael Reagan hopes they have some answers soon. Like many long haulers, he still can't work. The most he can do is go for a short walk with his dog. For Anna Nelson in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
As people spend more time at home because of the pandemic, online social networks can be a great tool to communicate and maintain friendships. But in the U.S., politics and COVID-19 are making personal relationships and social networks feel very antisocial for some people. Nina Vishneva has the story, narrated by Anna Rice.
The U.S. elections are over while COVID is still raging, and both are issues that continue to divide American society.
Hey, Eddie, how you doing?
Kevin McMullen's family hasn't been talking to him much since 2016, when he voted for Democrat Hillary Clinton in the presidential election. And when they do talk, conversations often end in fights. Born in Pennsylvania, McMullen moved to New York City 15 years ago. These days, he rarely returns home to see his family.
No, I don't only watch CNN. Hold on, I watch Fox News as well, just FYI.
Lyubov Borod and her brother Yakov came to the U.S. from Russia more than 4 decades ago. When they arrived, Jimmy Carter was president. They voted for Ronald Reagan and then for other Republican presidential candidates. But after George W. Bush, Lyubov Borod has been voting for Democrats, and their relationship with her family became strained.
I'm not talking to my sister. I'm not talking with a friend of mine. After 25 years of friendship, and it's painful.
The growing polarization in the U.S. is not a new phenomenon, but social networks seem to aggravate conflict and ruin friendships.
I personally have unfollowed people since the 2008, 2016, and even this year.
Sue Sheff is author of the book Shame Nation, The Global Epidemic of Online Hate. She says that when it's impossible to agree on a subject, the best thing to do is stop seeing the person's posts on your social network feed.
The hate, the divisiveness is not healthy for anybody.
Interestingly, those who support Democrats tend to unfriend people with opposing views 3 times more often, according to a study by the Public Religion Research Institute. And over 80% of voters admit they don't have close friends who vote for the opposing party. Even dating websites have become political, reports the Institute. Over 84% of registered users said they didn't want to date people who don't agree with them politically. As for Kevin McMullen, he shut down his Facebook page a few years ago, saying he got tired of all the aggression. Despite that, he hopes his relationship with his family becomes warmer with time. Because, he says, no matter who is running the country, your family never changes. For Nina Vishnova in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, villagers in Senegal work to help reduce ecological damage due to charcoal burning. We'll be right back.
Is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Republicans and Democrats are working to get the vote out in Georgia's January 5th runoff election. That will decide control of the U.S. Senate. But Republicans remain divided about the results of the November 3rd presidential race, with President Donald Trump still asserting widespread voter fraud. VOA's Michelle Quinn reports.
Pressure is building in the southern U.S. state of Georgia as Democrats and Republicans encourage people to start voting as early as December 14 in 2 runoff races. The outcome of the election set for January 5th will determine which political party will be in the majority in the U.S. Senate.
At stake in this election is control of the U.S. Senate, and that really means control of this country.
The special election in Georgia is going to determine ultimately the course of the Biden presidency and whether Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can deliver legislatively all the commitments they've made.
For Republicans, there are mixed feelings about the integrity of the state's voting system after Democrat and former Vice President Joe Biden won the state by about 12,000 votes. President Donald Trump has called on Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, a Republican, to ask the state legislature to overturn the election results and order an audit of mail ballot signatures. Still at a rally in the state over the weekend, Trump, who has refused to concede encouraged people to start voting.
You must go vote and vote early, starting December 14th. You have to do it. They cheated and they rigged our presidential election, but we will still win it.
That mixed message is making it hard for some state leaders, many of whom are Republican, like Kemp. Another is Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensberger, who oversees the state's election system.
The job of the Republican Party is to raise money and turn out the vote. My job as Secretary of State is to make sure we have honest and fair elections. It's as simple as that. And I think in my office, integrity matters.
The misinformation around the presidential election results is complicating efforts among Republicans to get out the vote, Raffensberger said.
Well, it makes it, these distractions, this disunity, it does make it more difficult. And so the candidates are out there running hard.
In the coming weeks, all eyes will be on the Peach State as both Democrats and Republicans work to get out the vote. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
President-elect Joe Biden has chosen women to fill many key cabinet posts as well as his entire senior communications team, part of his campaign promise to ensure full inclusion and gender equality. White House correspondent Patsy Widakuswara has this report on Biden's agenda for women.
While the data is not yet final, there is no doubt that women helped secure Joe Biden's electoral victory. 57% of women voted for Biden compared to 42% for President Donald Trump, according to exit polls by Edison Research. Since becoming president-elect, Biden has nominated women to fill key cabinet positions.
And while this team has unmatched experience and accomplishments, they also reflect the idea that we cannot meet these challenges with old thinking and unchanged habits. For example, we're going to have the first woman lead the intelligence community.
If approved by the Senate, that woman would be Avril Haines, Biden's choice for Director of National Intelligence. Biden also picked women to serve as Treasury Secretary, UN Ambassador, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and as chair of his economic advisors. His senior communications team will be all female, including Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will bring her own team of women, including Tina Flournoy as Chief of Staff. These women also represent various racial and economic backgrounds and include daughters of working-class and immigrant families. Activists say this diversity will help Biden achieve key priorities, racial and gender equity.
We're really looking for people to be at the top levels of government who are not only experienced and established and expert in their field, but who have the experiences of the communities that they are serving, that they're intended to serve, so that they can truly make the best decisions on behalf of the American people and the communities that most need those supports and those programs.
Biden's agenda for women includes improving economic security through equal pay and ending pregnancy discrimination, work-family balance, including parental leave and child care, access to health care, ending violence against women, and empowering women around the world. Having female decision makers is seen as especially crucial as the country faces the pandemic and tries to recover economically.
We can look back and see just how important it is, for example, that we've had Black women in positions of public health leadership or as mayors of big cities who said, look, there's a disproportionate effect on Black communities and even on Black women economically in this moment. And they are making sure that policy is reflective of those distinctive challenges.
To enact his ambitious agenda for women, Biden will need to overcome partisan gridlock in Congress, where his Democratic Party has a narrow majority in the House of Representatives and Republicans may keep control of the Senate. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
Wood and charcoal burning account for 50% of household energy consumption in Senegal, contributing to air pollution and deforestation. To reduce ecological damage, an association called Nebede, which means tree in Wolof, the predominant local language in Senegal, hires villagers to produce biochar. Estelle Janjo reports from Dakar.
Half of Senegal's households rely on wood or wood charcoal. To combat air pollution and deforestation, a cooperative of women produce biochar, an energy source made from straw. They burn it and mix the charred straw with clay and water. The end result is a carbon-neutral organic charcoal that does not involve chopping down trees. The mixture is pressed and stored, resulting in about 150 pallets of biochar per day. The initiative is diversifying the economy of a rural region where many eke out a living from livestock and fishing.
First of all, this biochar protects the forest, it protects our homes, it protects our supplies, it protects women, it protects the forest that no longer burns, it protects our lives. It is healthy. We thank God for this.
Biochar production has been launched in 18 villages in the region by the Nebedai Ecological Association, a name that means tree in the Wolof language. To fight deforestation, the group also plants trees in big cities and small villages alike. Since the beginning of the year, they have planted more than 1 million trees throughout the country. Nebedai director Jean Gop says that putting straw to good use has an added advantage.
Straw, which is the raw material of our biochar, in fact conveys thousands of bushfire across the country in the dry season. So reducing the straw is reducing bushfires and therefore preventing young trees from dying in the forests. So by consuming 1 kilogram of straw charcoal, we save the forest twice.
The benefits can be seen in Senegal's Djilor forest, patrolled by Ranger Biram Ging, who was born nearby. Ging lacks the authority to arrest those he catches cutting down trees. Rather, he reports infractions to a local village chief. Ging says rising delta waters have salted the land, posing an additional environmental challenge.
La déforestation est provoquée par les coupes abusives.
Deforestation is caused by, 1, the harmful cutting of trees, illegal cutting by the population. 2, there are brush fires which can ravage miles of forest. 3, the advance of salt from the sea to the forests.
3, il y a l'avancée de la sel venue de la mer vers les forêts.
The African Union's Great Green Wall initiative is focusing on the Sahel among other regions to prevent desertification. The biochar project and efforts to combat deforestation are a vital piece of the puzzle. Estelle Janjo for VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.